now is on our exciting Scrutiny in a Day for tomorrow, and that's on female genital mutilation. We already know that most of us can attend. Right. I'm going to hand over to Julie now to go through the programme. Do you want to take us through that?
Okay.
Yeah, is that all right?
Has everybody got a copy here?
No.
There's a few more over there.
Oh, yep. She's got one.
Oh, right, you've got one. Okay.
Yeah.
Has everyone got one?
Yeah. Okay. I'll put this online as well if people want to see it after the meeting. So we're 9 o'clock start for registration and refreshments, and then 9:30 we have an opening from Jasmine.
Yeah.
And then we're delighted that we've got Dr. Comfort Momo, who is an internationally recognised expert on FGM. She's based at Guy's and St Thomas's, where she opened the African Well Women's Clinic that works to support women with FGM, does reversals and such like. And then she's going to spend an hour, so that'll be a good amount of time, and with time for questioning as well. And then we've got Alison McFarlane, who's a Professor of Perinatal Health at City University London, and she recently was part of a report done with Equality Now. Unfortunately, the author from Equality Now recently passed away, so she's not going to be coming. Yeah, and I did ask Equality Now, but they're in tenure at the moment. But they're very much, Equality Now is internationally at the forefront of FGM, and she's a very experienced statistician, and she, in the press release, they highlighted that Southwark has the highest levels of FGM nationally as a local authority. So the data that that they highlighted were that 10.4% of children have a mother who's had some kind of FGM. And that's, I think, a lot to do with the population that we have, the populations who are likely to have a mother with FGM are particularly Nigerian, Sierra Leone and Somali. Not exclusively, there's quite a lot of African and Arabic communities, but those are the three biggest communities. So there'll be a time, a chance to talk to her about the data after she's presented it. And then we've got a presentation by the police, Southwark Clinical Commissioning Group, and Southwark Council. So April Board, who came here last time, along with the CCG colleagues, and the police will be presenting. The police are actually the lead partner. I understand also with the Crown Prosecution Service, but I wasn't able to get in touch with the Crown Prosecution Service. So that might be a group that you might want to invite back at another time, because they are a lead group, so it seems that might be an important kind of an area to pick up on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're going to present they've got a presentation. I'm going to give you a copy and everybody a copy at the beginning of the day, and then there'll be a chance to question them. That's fairly brief. They've only got half an hour because I wanted to put more of the emphasis on outside people. Okay. So then we've got half an hour for lunch, and then there'll be a bit of a rearrangement of the room, because the initial setup is going to be theatre style with a panel up here, but then we're going to move into a fishbowl setup, which we used once in health. So that will be a semicircle around like this, with the main presenters around in a circle, and then a circle of seats around the outside.
Okay, cool.
If Jasmine wants it.
No, carry on. We've been talking.
It has to be the fish.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the idea, is that the people who present, so the people who will be the fish are Forward, who are a national charity who are working on FGM, and then we've also got presentations by, briefer presentations by African Advocacy Foundation. We've got the Chief Executive, Agnes, and they're a really brilliant local organisation. They're based in South London. They did a recent afternoon on sexual health at FGM, and they had an amazing presentation by a young woman there. So they're doing really good work in going out and about. And also World of Hope, I don't know them very well at all. I just saw they were on Facebook. They work with the African community, so they're going to come down and say a few words as well. So that's a bit of a wild card, but I'm sure they'd be wonderful. She's been incredibly helpful, Florence. She's been liaising with Sunny and I to help try and get somebody from the embassies. So we have invited the Sierra Leone, the Somali and the Nigerian embassy. I don't know if anybody's going to turn up, but we did invite them. So we never know there. And then also Agnes from the African Advocacy Foundation knew that I was looking for somebody who had been a survivor, because at the last meeting you said that was really important to hear from. Yep. So she really helpfully put me in touch with, said that she could, that a contact of hers, a Sierra Leone woman, could come down and talk about her experience. So she's also going to give a personal story of her experience. So she's going to go a little bit to the end, because that can be quite emotional as well. So, and then there'll be a chance for everybody to contribute. So it will be in a circle, and the idea is that there's one seat which is open. So first we'll kind of start with a conversation, so that means that people presented can talk amongst themselves and amongst the committee, if you're one of the fish, and then people can move in and move out.
Bring your own snorkel.
But it can work. One of the... Can I just say a few words on why?
Go on.
The reason I suggested this format is because it can work well when you've got a lot of people in the room who've got a level of expertise, because they all get a chance to kind of come in. The other thing it's quite good at is it's rather so a committee can sometimes be a bit of like an interview situation, whereas this kind of because it's in a circle and because it moves in and out of like being the kind of the expert and the audience, it can create a kind of a more of a spiral and more of a dialogue about the issue, and also because it's quite a sensitive issue, I thought that might work. So that's the general idea, but yeah, it depends if you're comfortable and want to do that.
Yeah, I think this is great. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it, and you know, what a subject. I just think that the fishbowl is probably a good idea, because I don't think we should have that, you know, that theatre star when you're looking at people that have survived this, you know, horrific thing. So I think what we need to do is, that is fine, but if it looks for a minute, you know, that people are getting irritated by it, then we just revert to the good old, you know, old school social services circle. You know, I'm not trying to undermine it, but, you know, if we get a circle, that's fine. But, you know, if people are like, you know, I mean, basically people are there. The minute that people start getting irritated, just like get to a circle. But if people are, you know, up for it, then that's fine.
Well, when we did it with the house, what happened was that we did the fishbowl one time, and then after that we did end up using a round table format.
Yeah, we did.
So it kind of like it's more or less the same. It's quite similar to a kind of a round table. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. What happens?
Yeah.
Be interesting. Be good.
Yeah. Okay. Does everyone feel that? Okay, well, it's all incumbent on everyone, not just us, to make this work. So, okay, carry on.
Okay, and then that's going to happen. So their presentations, I think, will last for maybe about 3/4 of an hour. So then you'll have about 3/4 of an hour for the kind of round table fish thing, and then we're going to go into 2 breakout groups. One is on action research, and the idea on that is to hear about some experiences of research on this topic, with the aim of the Scrutiny Committee facilitating and conducting some research with communities. There's a lot of the evidence seems to show that that there's not a lot of research undertaken with communities, and that's a really good way of approaching it as well. So that, and we've got some excellent people as well around the table there. We've got 28 Too Many, which is works on FGM nationally and internationally, and their focus is particularly on supporting local initiatives and research. Ebony Riddle-Bamber, who is, you may well know, she's a council officer here. She works in community engagement. She's going to talk a little bit about her experience of doing action research. She worked in Cambodia on maternal action research projects. There's quite a lot of capacity and community engagement on action research, and they are keen to help with this issue, given that it's very much come to light that the importance of tackling FGM. We haven't got them here. They're unable to attend, unfortunately. But I've been in touch with Coventry University, and the professor there, who's an expert in community participation research, and a doctor there who's an expert in behavioural change, which is about what kind of initiatives can you actually do that change people's behaviour, rather than just say giving information, but what can you do. So she gives examples of things at their project, which things like working with religious communities. So you overcome the idea that it's a religious practice, and that there is evidence then that really changes behaviour. So they can't come down, but they have offers to come down and meet us and support this project. So that workshop is to kind of discuss action research and to practically plan out how we might do that. Maybe we could have applied for funding, maybe we can use our internal capacity, but that's the idea there. So that's for a longer term piece of work over the course of the administrative year. And then the second workshop is more of an open space to think about, after considering what's happened during the day, what other pieces of information do we need for the review?
Yeah, excellent. Well,
Can I clarify something?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just reading the email which you sent on the 4th of September.
Yeah.
In relation to some of the countries where FGM practice is prevalent. Here I noticed we have among the countries with highest incidence of FGM. We have Egypt, 91%, Guinea, 95%, 25.6%. Somalia has the highest, 97.9%.
is this from that?
How many of them, or representatives of those committees, will be present tomorrow?
Well, I don't know. I think what I sent around that information to community engagement so they could see it, and then I also highlighted, so there's some communities of very high prevalence of FGM, like Somalia and places like that, and there's who also have significant Southwark populations. There's some communities that have a high prevalence, but they don't really have many. There's not really many people from Southwark who live. There's not that community's not so big here. But so community engagement did send it very broadly though. That what they decided to do was just to send it to everybody. So that the multi-faith community had it, kind of women's groups had it. So they did quite a broad spread. And I did say these are the communities we particularly want: Nigerian, Somali, Eritrean. So they've had all the information.
Because the reason why I asked is obviously, if we're going to tackle this and get to the root causes of this and prevent, that will happen in the future, we should look at those committees where we have highest concentration of the incident of FGM, and also see how we can work together, as I suggested last time.
I think on workshop 2, the discussion on the next steps for the review, that may come into play there, because obviously we know roughly who's coming, but it depends who's going to be there on the day, so we'll have a much better idea. I mean, just remember, this is not the whole review, this is not all there is to say about it, this is a deep dive, all right.
Of course,
this is, in a way, this is a launch of a year's review into this. Because if you think about it, we wanted to do it last year, if you remember, but we didn't have time to do it justice. So now, we've said, right, we're going to clear the decks and we are going to give this some proper attention. We've had quite a strange run-up to it, didn't we? There was the thing that our lead member, Councillor Mills, said was that there was a bid, to do this work, but then we didn't win the bid. So, how were we approaching this? Then on the other side, you've got, the independent chair, Michael O'Connor, who's very concerned about this from a safeguarding perspective. So in a way, this is a job now from being nobody's job to everybody's job. The role of scrutiny, we're in a unique position. You know, no one else is going to have, you know, the cross breadth that we have to do this deep dive. So we can really add value, you know, and improve the quality of life for, you know, young women in particular in Southwark. So I'm not too worried. You know, I mean, if this was an event, if I was the chair of safeguarding running this event, I'd be really probably not sleeping tonight thinking, oh, we've not got that. But really, this is the launch of our inquiry. You know, and it's such an exciting
Yeah, of course,
area.
you're absolutely right. But the foundation we lay at this point will be extremely important in where that takes us. Because we find the right committees and the right people to talk on it, and also, as we, you know, agree in the past, to make sure, obviously, committee engagements are part of that process. Then, obviously, that will make it work for everyone.
Yeah, and they
are
really supportive. I mean, just to pick up on just your point about those understanding those communities, I think that's something that we could undertake in the research, is really try and make contact with those particular communities and find out what those particular barriers are.
Yeah, exactly, because we have committees with 97%, 87%, 75%. Obviously, there's something seriously wrong there that we need to put our resources. Whereas I'm not saying those with 5, 10% or 15% are not important. But if I'm going to use my resources, I focus on where there are highest concentration of that issue.
Can I just add something?
Yeah,
even with the 96%, there could be 96% of people from that community that are doing that. But in Southwark, there are only like 10% of it. So that would be. But then if you have some with 75%, and then in Southwark you have 90%. You will be looking at that 90% as opposed to, although it looks like, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Of course.
Because this is mathematics, you're looking at the mathematical side of it, because although Egypt has got 96%, we might not have Southwark has got a majority of Egyptians living in Southwark. So, but you might have a community that is 50%, but a lot of them in Southwark.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's the balance you have to play now.
I mean, this is quite an interesting thing because, you know, the authors of the report that we're going to look at, and the person that wrote it is dead. Did you say?
Oh no! There was two. There's two people. It was Alison McFarlane.
Oh right.
It was two authors. One of them had sadly passed away.
Yeah.
But one of them is still alive.
Oh, well, good. Well, no, that's good. All I was going to say is that, you see, that report, once that was released into the media, I mean, there were two, you know, I tried not to get involved in either side of the debate because we wanted to have some independent research once we've seen that, because people were saying, well, that's a bit like racial profiling, do you know what I mean? And there is a bit of a problem with that. But then we decided, actually, we weren't too worried about that. We just wanted to find out what their thoughts were, their ideas were, because actually we're scrutinising this issue and we're not going to get too bogged down in the arithmetic. The thing that we really wanted to do was to find out what adds value and how you can actually prevent it. You know, and it felt really, and that's why we didn't want to rule it out, because it came out in the summer, precisely the time. We didn't want to be arguing about arithmetic and racial profiling at the time when there was a big concern that a lot of young women were being flown abroad to have this done to them. So
I mean, I've had some correspondence with Alison McFarlane, and she did emphasise that this is a lot of the figures that they take are from women in the country or when they come to the country. So rates are obviously going down as awareness goes up. So this is, but that is so it is important to bear that in mind. Although it is quite hard to work out exactly to what extent it's falling, but
one is too many.
Exactly, and that's what she said. There are reports of children going abroad, and there's some stories as well from the presentation that will be given by officers. So with that, without a doubt, it's an issue. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I mean, for my concern, if Southwark has got the highest number in the country, that's a concern for everybody in Southwark. That's my own concern. Which means we have a lot of work to do.
There was a report I saw from 2004 about that was done with the Somali community, and the Somali community here, So here, around about 91% of Somali women who came to the country have had FGM. Of the children that that were either born here or came before the age where FGM would normally be done, 41% had FGM. So that's much less, but it's still very significant,
Yes.
isn't it? That was in 2004, so hopefully you'd think that change would have happened, but it does show, yeah.
I mean, presumably that they'll have all these will be the sort of statistics and facts and figures that will put everything else we then do in context. So I think it's useful to, although it is like, you know, they're slightly arbitrary really, but I think it is to, then you know the basis of what you're talking about.
No, absolutely, that's helpful. Okay, so tomorrow is not just because, you know, Julie and I will be, you know, leading it through, but this is your scrutiny. So it's incumbent on absolutely every one of you to make this work tomorrow. So I really look forward to working with you on this exciting area. It's really the launch of our inquiry, which will last a year. So, you know, I'm not too anxious. You know, I'm hopeful that we can get as much from the day as possible. But as I say, because we've got the research, you know, not too anxious, but, you know, it would be great if we can make it as successful as possible. And I can't thank you enough for all the work you've done, well, Julie in particular, but everybody. And look forward to seeing you all bright and early, well, whenever you can get there, in the morning. Thank you. Okay, any other business?